On the Build Show today, we're talking recessed lighting. My buddy CJ, who's a master electrician out in California, is going to give us the 411 on every type of situation that you're going to encounter, including those problems that we see on the job site, like, oh shoot, this joist is in the way, what do I do? So that being said, master electrician CJ from CNC Electric, let's get going.
This is a perfect job site because I'm able to show you two things: remodel and new construction. So over here we have our remodel side. Drywall's still here, insulation's still here, we love that. And then over here is the new kitchen and addition, where it's basically new construction. Why does that matter? I'll show you right here. Come here. We're talking recessed lights today. Recessed lights, can lights, hi-hats, whatever you want to call them. We all know what they are, and they're on every job site, it seems like, at least that we're on. So I want to kind of show you on the famous table, the famous display table that we always got everything strewn out on, and kind of talk about the basics of recessed lighting. And what's the difference? New construction, big housing, open framing needed, right? So over here, easy to use them. We can see our framing, we can lay out our lights, we can install them, done deal. We know that. Number two, remodel. This is a little cut-in application for, just like we have right here. So actually, I want to show you. In this application, we used remodel because we were, for a few reasons. The ceiling was not going to go away. In the demo scope, it was supposed to stay. For a few different reasons, one being we were only allowed, or the builder was only allowed to remove so much drywall, cost implications. Most of the time, you know, there is going to be drywall on a remodel. And the cool thing about this recessed light is we were able to lay out. We still had to get our wiring up there, so we just cut a channel, easy patch for the drywall crew, and hole saw in the actual light, slip it in the hole, and I really want to show, this is just a prime example of when you're dealing with a remodel application, when you have drywall in place and it's not coming out. You can see actually exposed in our wire chase that we had to cut open to actually install the wiring itself, our joist layout, our ceiling joist layout. And we actually cannot hit framing in this ceiling without not being able to slip the can up. So we have to avoid framing with a traditional remodel like this. Even though they've really gotten small over the years, this is one example. This is a more traditional looking version. Again, thicker, not rated for 2x4 ceiling. So something to take into consideration is how big your wall cavity is, or your ceiling cavity, your joist bay. How big of a space do you actually have to install this? Because this is all above in a ceiling like this. That being said, it was very nice to be able to cut open a channel and be able to see, and we adjusted our layout to reflect the ceiling framing layout with the lighting layout that we wanted to install. Drilled out, fished our wires, and we're good to go. Now, that being said, it's not always that simple. Something new on the market, newer on the market as far as lighting goes, is what I call, and what most call, a wafer-style can. Look at this guy. How thin is that? We have just started to see these come out in the last few years. Now every company is kind of having one of their own. I really like these because traditionally you would have a housing this thick versus this thick. And what does that do for us? It opens up the possibility of being able to fit this in a much smaller space. These are actually designed to be laid out on top of a joist. So if you look up at these traditional style housings that we have installed here, we actually had to miss the framing. And in this case, I'm going to show you why these are so cool. Remote driver, this is actually your wiring compartment and junction box and the actual driver to the LED, and this is the actual trim to the LED, and it plugs in here, versus a traditional remodel housing and wiring compartment, housing, clips to hold it against the drywall, and a traditional module that is going to slide right into this. This is our trim piece. This is what's exposed on your ceiling. So big difference in size, big difference in the application and where you can fit this. When you're limited, you go wafer can. So I'm going to show you real quick on another part of this job where we can do this. All right, guys, CJ here with the Build Show, and we're talking recessed can lights, recessed hi-hats, recessed, what else do they call them? They call them different things everywhere, but we call them can lights here in California. This recessed can light is actually a traditional can light that we're using in this laundry room, but I wanted to show you in an application where we would hit framing on our layout. We wouldn't be able to fit this bad boy in there. It's actually physically won't fit because of the framing layout on the ceiling. We'd either have to do one of two things: cut that out, which can't happen because it's load bearing in this application, and B, we could adjust our can light spread, but that's going to kind of change what the designer wanted. So what happens if that comes your way? When we're actually laid out our ceiling, we drilled it out with a hole saw and removed the piece of drywall, and what is there? A big piece of lumber. A big piece of lumber that we're not able to fit a recessed light in, but luckily everyone's got one of these out now. So most manufacturers have one of these out. I'm calling them wafer cans because one of the early ones, everyone has a different, but they're thin can lights. They're thin recessed can lights. They have an install spring-loaded tab, they have a remote driver, and that's it. They're literally trim, driver, or power source versus, like I said, a traditional remodel housing that you need a module. So why are these so cool? Look, we hit this framing, and in order for us to install this, we need our power supply, which we've already fished up there. We would connect it to the driver with a connector and wire nut and so on and so forth. But check this out. After that, the actual driver, once connected to a power source, is mated via this connector. Boom, boom. Driver gets connected to your wiring source, which connects to your switch, and then slips up past that framing, and you can actually mount it in the attic. And actually, they're not even required to be mounted. But look at this. Boom. We got that big framing, and voila. You got a recessed can light with where you could never fit a recessed light before. Thanks, guys. All right, so we just went over the differences between the wafer style, these thin LED cans, and a traditional housing with a traditional LED module. One thing I wanted to kind of point out that I think is a difference, and the only real difference that I see, is the fact that when you're dealing with these thin wafer style cans, you're limited on trim options, and you really have that plain flat look, versus some designers, some architects, some design wants a little bit more detail. So that's the only real pro and con I see between a traditional wafer style can that all come this thin, being that, you know, they have to really be thin. You can't get that regressed dish that you would get on a traditional LED can. So maybe this looks a little fancier, but again, there's always pros and cons. And I think in this application, these wafer cans have really changed the game. All right, guys, CJ here with the Build Show, and we are just wrapping up the recessed lighting recap. I just wanted to show you real quick the products that we were talking about in this video. Real traditional style new construction housing that you would use in open framing, insulated ceiling rated, all the good stuff, versus a couple different versions. I have a remodel housing that you would use in a drywall application, just two different shapes, essentially the same thing. One's a little thinner that can fit in a 2x4 ceiling. So that's something always to take into consideration is how deep is the ceiling cavity that you have to work with? Can you use this? What trim options? And by trim options, I'm meaning the module, the actual trim piece that you see. What options do you have? Sometimes they want deeper housings for adjustability. Some of these trims are for slope ceilings and they need a little bit more space to wiggle around. So they're not all created equally. Definitely pay attention to trim compatibility on the deeper stuff versus the more shallow stuff. But again, what we're really highlighting here is one of my favorite new guys on the market is the wafer-style can trim, recessed lighting trim. Remote driver, eliminates the need for all this. This slips up in the ceiling, gets connected to your power source, and that's it. That is how thick your recessed light is, enabling you to fit it into much tighter places, smaller ceiling cavities, and also not having to adjust your layout if you happen to hit framing or something that you cannot remove. This guy's your answer. So again, really cool stuff. You got a lot of options out there for recessed lighting, so do your homework. Make sure you're getting what you want, that it comes in the right color, and we'll get you on the next one. This is the Build Show with CJ.
Guys, if you're not currently following CJ's work on the Build Show or over on Instagram, go check him out. CNC Electric on Instagram. Fabulous electrician, posting stories and content daily. And every single week, CJ's got a new video focused on electrical work, sometimes even some low voltage work. And I'm super proud to have CJ on the Build Show Network. He's the only master electrician that I know that's really able to break it down in an understandable way. And as you saw in this video, he's super engaging. He's really a kind guy that has the industry's best at his heart. So I highly recommend going and check out his videos over on thebuildshow.com. And the way that you know that CJ's got a new video out is sign up for our newsletter. If you sign up for that newsletter in the link below, my team will send you an email on Tuesday and Friday and Sunday and tell you here's what's new on the site over the last couple days. We're literally publishing like 15 new videos a week, and you don't want to miss all that new content. Now, you may not watch all 15 videos, but for instance, if you also are a master electrician or you're about to do a big project, you might want to really know exactly, hey, this is what's new from CJ. Maybe he's addressing something that's really important for you. So that's why getting on that newsletter on a regular basis, seeing what's new is really important. With that being said, guys, hit that subscribe button below. New content on the Build Show every Tuesday and every Friday. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram. Otherwise, we'll see you next time on the Build Show.